everyone. Last month's winner of the community poll was Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. And most of you who have been following my journey know that fairly early on, my first exposure to Led Zeppelin was Stairway to Heaven, and I enjoyed that experience quite a bit. And I've always been intending to come back around, and thanks to you all, now is my turn to come back to Led Zeppelin and hear another one of their pieces. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this piece, but Vlad did tell me that it was composed over the course of about 3 years, so it's not one of those quickly done and move on sort of works. And he also said that it is one of their two most highly recognized, epic, progressive pieces. And the other one is Stairway to Heaven. So I've heard one, and now this is the second one. If you haven't seen my first listen and experience with Stairway to Heaven, you can check it right here. But I'm ready to dig in and see how this compares to the last time I heard Led Zeppelin. So I noticed right away this little riff or hook, and I still haven't figured out exactly the distinction between riff and hook, but anyway. Da-da-dum, 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 da-da-dum. And it has this chromatic accent to it. If we start at the beginning here, it starts on this A, and then it's just up a half step to the A sharp, and then up a half step to the B, and then up a half step to the C. And then it goes a whole step up to the D, but it's this great chromatic accent which builds this sort of immediate sense of anticipation. Da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, a little higher, and a little higher, and a little higher. And it's a nice way to start a piece of music. It really makes you feel like something's coming that's going to be interesting. So let's go back. I haven't gone very far, so let me just start from here. Now we're back down again, climbing. Here comes the voice.
Stars to fill my dream. I'm a traveler of both time and space to be where I have been. Sit with elders of a gentle race. This world is seldom seen. Top of days for which they sit and wait. All will be revealed.
There's some cross rhythms happening here.
Talking songs from tongues of living grace. Sounds caress my ear. Not a word I heard could I relate. The story was quite clear. Whoa.
So this isn't exactly well, I try not to come to these with preconceived ideas, but Kashmir, I guess maybe it's partly because of Stairway to Heaven and how smooth that one was. I was expecting maybe a more flowing type piece. I'm not saying that I'm disappointed, but this is very, very different from Stairway to Heaven in the style of singing that the voice is using. It's more rhythmic, it's more emphatic on every syllable, and the accompaniment is more small pieces, small little motifs or hooks or whatever you want to call them. And at the same time, it's kind of doing the same thing that Stairway to Heaven did, and that a lot of really good music does, in that it is building layer by layer as it moves along. That doesn't mean that all good music, that it has to do that in order to be a good piece of music, but it is one of the very common techniques. And I'm hearing some trumpets adding in and the strings adding in, and now we have this figure that's da 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 dum, which has joined in now just a little bit ago, and every little bit is adding one more bit of depth to the texture, to the musical texture, and it gives us this very compelling sense to the music. So let's go on. I'm curious to see if it keeps adding or what's going to happen next. But anyway, back up just a couple seconds. Here we go. And that little interlude section, I kind of like this. Let's see. To me, it sounds a bit like an organ, synthesized organ something, but I'm not sure exactly what it's supposed to be. But it's the cross rhythms happening here that are really, well, it gives a bit of a jazzy feel to it, because jazz and or blues and or gospel, all of those from that section of musical style, they have these layers of rhythm coming in at different points, and to me this kind of pulls that out a little bit. It gives a little bit of stylistic flair to it, which is nice because everything else is so clocked and so precisely placed. So let's go on. There's some trumpet in there. That was interesting. Shifting here a bit. interesting. And now here we are back with that was nice. It's shifting from one feel to another, but at the same time, there's a sort of continuity to it, because the drums are keeping the beat, holding it together, but within that we have this great shift from what we were just listening to with the bum 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 ba-dum, this bit here, which was such a catchy kind of powerful energy just in the rhythm itself, without even having to put a lot of noise into it, and the texture of the piece thinned out there, so you could just enjoy that bum 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 ba-dum. And then of course it was interjected with this ya-da-da-da-da, this little bit of quick figure, and then it goes back to bum 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 da-dum. And I enjoyed that section quite a bit. And then of course we go back to the bum 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 bum. Now another thing that I noticed, this set of chords, which I'm just going to lump into the blues and jazz style, they are doing a sort of chromatic descent. Whereas at the beginning, where I pointed out the chromatic ascent. And I don't want to get sounding too technical here. What I mean by chromatic, it's a very minute, small, incremental rising of the pitch. And you don't have to know a lot of music theory or understand a bunch of fancy terminology to recognize that it's just creeping up a tiny bit and a tiny bit more and a tiny bit more. Or when we're going downwards, like bum, 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 it's just going down almost like we're sliding down, but we're sliding down in distinct increments. And I always love to tell my students that the word chromatic comes from the root word meaning colored or colorful, and it has to do with the idea of the colors of tonality. But basically chromatic means, an easy way to remember would be like, if you're looking at a piano, just think of it as using every single color of the keys, going up or going down, both black and white. You're not skipping any of them, all the colors. And it gives a very colorful aural effect as well. So anyway, little digression. If you want to know more about music theory and all of that, I am currently putting a course out on my Ko-fi and Patreon pages where we dig into these things, and it will be running for quite some time, and it will always be there for anybody who comes in at any point and wants to support this journey of mine and maybe learn a bit more about music too. But let's get back to this, because I haven't heard the whole piece yet, and I have some ways to go.
The sun burns the ground, and my eyes fill with sand as I scan this
I'm enjoying the voice and the violins laid one on top of the other. Now we're back. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Ba-da-dum. This is
Pilot up the storm who leaves no trace, like thoughts inside a dream. With the map
That's where that little bit is again.
place, yellow desert screen. My Shangri-La beneath the summer moon, I will return again.
And there's another thing that I want to point out here too is whereas the strings have this little da-da-dum, da-da-dum rhythm, so also the bass is using that same rhythm but adding something to it. So it's going da-da-dum, da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum. And you can hear within that figure, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. So the strings are building off of something that the bass is doing. And if you listen closely, you can hear what the bass is doing is linked to what the drums are doing. And so everything is very well stacked and tied together. All these little elements and textures, they're not just thrown in randomly, but it gives something for this voice, which is getting very free above it and carrying on in its kind of flamboyant, free, expressive way. And he can be free like that because everything else underneath is holding it together. And so everything keeps going on. Let's keep going.
My Shangri-La beneath the summer moon, I will return again. And the dust that floats high into when moving through Kashmir.
That was nice. We're back to the strings here with their figure.
Oh, Father, up before
Here comes the voice
fill my
again.
sails across the sea of fear. With no provision but an open face, blowing the straits of fear. Whoa,
Something that sounds like a deep brass instrument down in the bass, like a tuba or bomb. I'm not sure what that is, whether it's the bass or is it a brass instrument. This part just makes you want to get up and walk. What all is this voice? This really reminds me of old style band music.
when I walk, when I'm on my way, yeah. When I see the way you
Okay, he's climbing up. I like the way this plays with the direction that the music travels. Sometimes it's ascending, sometimes it's descending. still climbing and climbing and climbing as we go. I guess it's fading out now. That was very interesting for me to hear this music. And yes, I did somehow imagine when I started that maybe I would hear more similarities with Stairway to Heaven stylistically. But this is really quite different in a lot of ways. Just as I was saying earlier, it doesn't have such a flowing melodic line to it. And in fact, the voice is not one that I would call particularly attractive in this song on its own, but it has a very expressive, almost raw feel to it, and colors the music even more. And so again, I'm not saying I dislike it. It was just a different expectation that I had, even though I tried hard not to come with expectations, but I can't help it. I mean, I try, but it happens. But I enjoyed it a lot, and there are some things that I notice between the two in that are similar between the two, in that both of them are very tightly constructed, meaning the music is formed in such a way that everything links one to another. So even though they have a very different sound, very different feel to them, they do share that commonality. And I enjoy that solid build of the music. I do. And it makes it easier when a piece of music is built that way. It makes it easier for me to enjoy it because it's kind of like walking into a house that you feel is well made, so you don't have floorboards creaking or hinges falling off of doors or the walls aren't flimsy. You have a bit of security, so you can just sit down and relax and enjoy the space. And so I'm not saying that we should always be technically focused, but as a musician, I notice these things, just like a builder would walk into a home and notice the way it's constructed. I can't help it. It's just who I am and how I look at music. It's one of the things that I'm always conscious of. And so in this case, I enjoyed that very solid, tightly constructed build of the piece. Having come with these expectations, which I brought with me from my experience with Stairway, now listening to this and finding it so different, it helps me to appreciate the musical ability of this band more, because I recognize that they don't just have one idea, one style that everything sounds like. They don't have one masterpiece. They have two very well designed pieces of music here, Stairway and now Kashmir. And they are not copies of each other. They are their own entities, musically, stylistically, character-wise. And this is going to be an interesting thing for me to... This song is going to be an interesting one for me to dig into in depth. And as usual, I will take several days to listen to it some more. One more thing Vlad told me is that there are some orchestral arrangements, transcriptions of this piece, and maybe I'll go check some of those out just to see what people have done with it. And I will come back and record an in-depth video with my findings and experiences after having lived with the music for a few days. And of course, as usual, they will both be published at the same time, and you can follow the link to that in-depth exploration at the end of this video. And we'll see what we find. I'll see you soon.